worldly man never belongs because he understands nothing. He doesn't understand what he is doing, why he is doing, where he is going, why is nothing. He is just sleepwalking. You must be full of desire. Bhagavad Gita is not about the renunciation of desire. Get rid of that notion. The Gita allows everything except ignorance. Desire is another name for ego, and ego is another name for ignorance. The worst thing is that the ego thinks it knows why it suffers. When you do not know what you want, and you also do not know how to live, how to relate, the teacher's answer will always exceed the scope of the question. Otherwise, the teacher is not worth calling a teacher. Sthitaprajna, the knower. He is the knower that is no more. He has known so deeply that he is no more. How do you corrupt him now? How do you corrupt him now? If you exist as a danger to yourself, don't you? The teacher often has to go beyond the scope of the student's question. In fact, he will always have to answer a question that the student never asked. Because there is no question that is not based on an assumption. And if the question is coming from the student, the assumption too is the student's. The student being the student, the assumption is bound to be flawed. Therefore, the question is bound to be worthless. What is a question? Something that comes from your inner state of grief or restlessness or conflict or confusion, right? It arises from there and promises relief if answered. That's how you could define a question, right? If you are completely all right within, would there be questions? You are completely all right within, would any question arise? No. So the question itself arises from a point that is struggling with conflicts and haziness, right? That's where the question arises from. That point, which is the ego, though it is divided, unclear, and suffering, obviously, but is still somewhere quite confident that it understands its suffering. I'm suffering, but I know I am suffering. So I also know how to get rid of my suffering. I'm suffering. Yeah, that's very bad. I'm suffering. But not all is lost, because I do understand why I am suffering. So I ask a question. And the question is based on the premise that I know why I am suffering. Right? For example, I have a stomach ache. Right? And suffering I'm experiencing the ache, so obviously there is suffering. But I also claim that I understand where the ache comes from. Do you see the difference? Experiencing is not understanding. The ego suffers, but that's not the worst thing about its being. Suffering alone can be a great helper or reliever as well. Suffering can be the initiator towards liberation. So the fact that the ego suffers is not the worst thing about the ego. The worst thing is that the ego thinks it knows why it suffers. So I have a stomach ache, and that's bad enough. But to make things worse, I claim I know where the ache comes from. And now what do? I ask a question. The question is, where do I get that medicine? That's where all questions come from. Flawed assumptions. Flawed assumptions. It's not necessary and that your questions will fetch you relief. That's why today the first thing I said was that the teacher must necessarily exceed your questions. And that will make you look stupid. Or that will make the teacher look stupid to you. Or both of you will be stupid in each other's eyes. The teacher is looking stupid because you think he doesn't even understand what you're asking. You're asking one thing and he's getting you another thing. And the teacher will find you stupid because he knows that the question that you are asking is in no way related to your real suffering. So there will always be a disconnect. There would always be a disconnect between the student and the teacher. The student, even though he suffers, does not give up on the confidence, the belief that he knows nothing about his suffering. The proof is that knowledge, true realization, and suffering cannot go together. Had you really known the root of your suffering, how could you have suffered? Please understand. You are suffering, and we empathize with that. But we must also tell you that you just don't know why you are suffering. All your diagnosis is flawed, misplaced, and dangerous. Now look at the teacher's predicament. On one hand, he sees a suffering creature in front of him. There is empathy, there is compassion. On the other hand, this creature carries a large degree of autonomy. The creature says, I am suffering, but treat me according to my wishes. Think of such a patient in front of a doctor. The patient is not faking the pain. The pain is real. But the patient is also confident that he understands his disease, that the diagnosis must come from himself. I know my problem. Just that I don't know how to solve the problem. Not that you are totally useless, Mr. Doctor, Mr. Teacher. You do have some use in my scheme of things. But your use is that I will provide the question and you provide the answer that fits the paradigm of the question. You must not exceed the question. So the stomach is burning, aching, and the student knows it is acidity. And he tells the teacher, all right, can you give me some antacid? That's the question. And that will look like a pretty innocent query. See, he's a seeker, no? Sir always says, you must be full of questions. He's coming up with an inquiry. And even Acharya Shankar said, you must have jigyasa. So he looks vested with all the means that lead to liberation. Sadhan Chatushta. Inquiry or jigyasa is such a fundamental requirement there. And this one is displaying that he has jigyasa. No, this is not jigyasa, sir. This is expression of requirement. This is demand. This is like placing an order in a restaurant. Can you get me one large cheeseburger, please? Looks like a question, no? But it's just an expression of a desire. You are at the center of your question. You are not allowing the question to have the freedom to dislodge you. And that's how most of our questions are. They are based on assumptions. And the assumption is that I know what my problem is. So the question is, so the problem is here. Now tell me how to solve the problem. And that's bound to be wrong. Because no problem can stand the right diagnosis. Had you really known your problem, the problem would have long since ceased to exist. So if you have a problem and you think you know your problem and the problem still exists, stop kidding yourself. Not getting it. If you have a problem and it's making you suffer and you think you know what your problem is, we said stop kidding yourself. If you have a problem, then you don't know your problem. Otherwise, the problem couldn't have existed. The diagnosis is the cure. Had you known your problem, there would have been no problem. The student never knows his problem. Therefore, all questions are stupid. And the teacher hears the question and says, why the hell are you asking this question? This is not where your problem is. Why are you wasting your time and mine as well? But if you say that to the student, we said the student holds a large degree of autonomy, the student would walk out or delete the app, whatever. So the teacher says, fine, no point confronting. Let him ask whatever rubbish he has to. Just do it fast. Keep it short. Keep it short. Let the question come. You don't always need to take the bull by the horns, right? Let him spit whatever he has to. And then the teacher proceeds to say what he has to. And what the teacher has to say will not be in the same dimension as required by the student's question. The teacher's answer will always exceed the scope of the question. Otherwise, the teacher is not worth calling a teacher. If the teacher answers at the same level as the question posed to him, then the teacher is worthless. What's there in the tumbler? And I say, a lot of water. I don't deserve to be a teacher. Because is that your problem? Does your problem lie in not knowing what this tumbler contains? So on one hand, I don't want to insult you when you ask what's there in it. On the other hand, I cannot forsake my dharma. So I'll let your question come and then give an answer which will look superficially connected to the question, but will in no way actually be connected to the question. It will be far beyond the question. Far beyond the question. A simple question, a regular question, and the answer will be like somewhere else. So obviously the student then can take the liberty to say that the teacher is stupid. Because the teacher actually didn't answer what the student asked for. All you wanted to know was what's there inside. And instead of telling that, the Teacher comes up and says, what's outside is inside. There is no boundary, no division. And if you want to know what is inside this, look inside yourself. Is this an answer or a headache? If you want to know what is inside this, look inside yourself. Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. Because the teacher has sensed that your real problem is ignorance about yourself, and the teacher wants to send you in that direction. So he'll say, fine, you want to know what's here? Look within yourself, that's what it's here. And then you say, am I so watery? Am I overhydrated? Are you getting it? You too have to be at some point your own teacher. The teacher is not necessarily some other person. And when you're your own teacher, first thing is stop taking your questions seriously. Second thing is still keep asking stupid questions. Worst thing is to be stupid and still ask no questions. If you are stupid, ask a lot of questions so that the teacher gets ample space and room and opportunity to bash you up. If you are stupid and you keep quiet, then the stupidity remains hidden. The stupid ones must talk much more than the intelligent ones. Otherwise, how will you see what you contain within? You must open your mouth and let the gibberish pour. So when you talk to yourself, keep that in mind. How many of us talk to ourselves? Yeah. Ultimately, one has to be her own teacher, right? Even the external one works only to that end. That is the final thing. You don't need anybody outside of yourself. That's the ultimate. Getting it? Would you remember this? You do not know where your problem lies. And if you do not know where your problem lies, stop feeling confident that you know the solution. If you have a problem, that itself is the proof that you do not know the problem. Once you know the problem is gone. We are talking of the subtle dimension. We are not talking of material objects. We are not saying that if you cannot cross a river and you realize there is no boat, that means suddenly a boat will manifest from somewhere. No, we are not saying that. We are not talking of material objects here. We are talking of inner problem. If you find yourself conflicted and confused here, you find a lot of haze, needless churning, pointless thinking. That means you do not know what you're thinking about. That means you do not know what the real problem is. Problem itself proves the absence of its understanding. Existence proves ignorance. We are talking of problems here. Existence proves ignorance. Now let's look at the question that, so finally Arjuna has come around. Chapter 2. Sri Krishna had so much to say. When he didn't concur with or yield to pure Gyan, then Sri Krishna took him to all the three levels the level of the absolute, the level of relative facts, and also then the level of imaginary concepts. And impressed upon him that he must fight. Finally, Arjuna seems to talk. And he comes up with a question. What's the question? Verse 54. Sir, Krishna, can you please describe the one? What is he's asking? What is the description of one who is firmly established in wisdom and immersed in deep samadhi? What is he asking for? A description. Description. The word is lakshana. Symptoms. Can you describe such a person? He goes on to say, how does he speak? How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? After all that Sri Krishna had to say, 50 or more verses, this is what Arjuna has to ask. How does he look? How does he walk? How does he sit? How does he behave? Kindly describe him to me. He doesn't want to be one. At most, he wants to behave like one. That's Lokadharma for you. Don't be that. Behave like that. Behavior. Control, adjust, modify, behavior. Behavior. And that's all. That's all. Nunu, when uncle auntie arrive, show them namaste or namaskaram. Behavior. That's Lokdharma. That's where Arjuna is coming from. I don't need to address my interiors. I don't need to go to the center of my suffering, which is my problem. I don't need to go there. Just tell me the description of one who is firmly established in wisdom. Isn't that what we anyway see being copied and parroted and paraded all around ourselves? Behavior. No? If you look like a saint, then you are a saint. And that's why it is so easy becoming a saint. If you talk like a wise one, then you're wise. That's why it's so easy to be called wise. And that's why the real wise ones will remain hidden. Because we have preset notions of what goodness looks like, walks like, sits like, behaves like, speaks like. If he is behaving in this way, he cannot be a good man. And if he is wearing all those sacred marks, he is bound to be a holy man. What can be further from the truth? What can be a bigger way Maya entraps you, fools you? Isn't it so easy? And has it not gotten into us right till our bones? Come on, show me what do you do when you meet a stranger? A known stranger, that is. I mean, contradiction, but yes. What do? You smile. You smile. What are you smiling for? Gotten here, into the bone marrow. You have to smile. If you don't smile, he might feel threatened. As sometimes Europeans and Americans do when they come to India. They're accustomed to randomly smiling at everybody and saying, good day, hi. And you look at them and say, oh. And he says, what's wrong with this person? And when that happens 10 times, and he says, what's wrong with me? Why am I here? When's the next flight back? Because behavior. That's become the essence of our life, behavior. What does Arjuna say? How does he talk? How does he live? Where does he go? You are inquiring about the wise one, the one who has settled down in wisdom, Sthitadhi or Sthitaprajna. And this is what your question is about? Tell me how he looks. Is he underweight, overweight, right weight? How tall is he? Is that what you'd ask? What are the words he uses? Don't tell me he uses cuss words sometimes. He behaves politely, no? He speaks softly, no? And if he does, he's a darling. How do you know? Why do you allow these notions to cloud direct vision? This is an experiment that never fails. Put 5, 6 random images here. Huh? And ask yourself which of these are safe people to be with. And without knowing anything about them, you'll find your past, your conditioning is suggesting an answer. How do you know? And you know what? What you know is something that he also knows. He knows that wearing such and such symptoms would qualify him to be called a good man in your eyes. That's such a dangerous situation. He knows what you would call as gentle or good or safe or holy. And if he knows that, what will he do? Just behave that way. It's so easy. Just behave. You don't need to be good or nice or holy. You just have to behave in a particular way. He already is inside you reading your mind. Why? Because he doesn't need to read your mind. Why? Because his mind is coming from a particular book that he too has read. So if he has read that book, he has de facto read your mind. Oh, too bad. You don't have a free mind. Your mind is a scripted one. Everybody knows what's in your mind. Everybody knows what's in your mind. Tell me, where is freedom? Tell me, where is individuality? If you have a scripted mind, do you even exist? If you have a scripted mind, then you're a photocopy. No? Of the book that you're copying and living. Let these questions sink in. It is about the Sthitaprajna, and that's the highest state possible. Not just wise, unshakably wise. That's the Sthitaprajna. If you call somebody pragya, that itself is a big thing. If you call somebody just gya, that means jnani. Jnani. Vigya, that's jnani. When you call somebody pragya or pragya, that's a bigger thing, very big thing. Not only do you have knowledge, you have inner knowledge of the kind that Upanishads refer to by saying pragyanam brahma. So gyan, pragyan, and now we are talking of the Sthitaprajna, who not only has this and that, but has disappeared so fully that he cannot be dislocated. To be dislocated, you must be there, right? He is gone. So now you cannot remove him from his centeredness. He has reached the right place and then disappeared. So now he cannot be shaken. Now he cannot be corrupted. Now he cannot be pulled back or down. That's the Sthit Prajna. Not only is the Sthit Prajna the knower, he is the knower that is no more. He has known so deeply that he is no more. How do you corrupt him now? How do you corrupt him now? If you exist, you exist as a danger to yourself, don't you? If you exist, you can still be corrupted. The Sthit Prajna is the one who comes to the right place, and allows himself to be dissolved there so that he can never be taken away from that place. Comes to the right place and does not remain careless enough to still remain. He says, I have come to the right place. If I still remain, they'll take me away. So let me just dissolve myself here so that nobody is able to now pull me away, tear me away. That's the Sthita Prajna. Is a finality. Is the ultimate thing. Being Sthit Prajna is a more refined way of saying one is Atmastha or Brahmastha. That's the quality, that's the dimension we are referring to. And what does Arjuna ask about that? Hey, tell me, how does he look? How does he sit? How does he walk? How does he sleep? How does he behave? That's how our questions are. Now, what do you think Krishna is going to do? Any guesses? Will Krishna answer Arjun? Yes, Sri Krishna will answer Arjun, but not Arjun's question. That's what the teacher has to do. Answer the student and ignore the student's question. Answer the being, not the superficial curiosity. You are not fit to be a teacher if you cannot see where the question is coming from. You have to answer the point the question is coming from, not the language of the question. The question is superficial, worthless. But the teacher indeed does listen carefully to the question so that, in case of a doubt, he may ascertain, using the language of the question, where the question is coming from. And that's the only utility of the question. It lets the teacher know the point the question is coming from. In either case, the question will never be answered. Whether or not it is immediately clear to the respondent, or he has to listen carefully to the question to ascertain, What's driving that question? Whichever way it is, the question, the language, the semantics, they are never going to be responded to. The teacher looks into the eyes of the student and says, I can see where you are coming from, though you are trying your best to hide that. You are not questioning, you are camouflaging. You are not asking to be answered. You are asking to be just entertained and never answered. In fact, if the teacher answers the question as it is, then the teacher is helping the student feel more confident that the question has value. If the question is answered as it is, because the question is a demand, the question is a desire. If that demand, that desire is fulfilled, then it stands doubly attested that the desire was valid, that there was substance in the question. So, by answering the question on its face value, the teacher would actually harm the student. So, for example, let's say if you remain actually afraid all the time, but you come up and say, you see, I am never afraid, but I think sometimes I should be a little circumspect. Otherwise, I might run into danger. And the teacher says, yes, I think sometimes you should be a little skeptical of yourself. Yes, you're right. And the way to be a little skeptical of yourself is like this. Then what has the teacher agreed to? He has agreed to your assumption that you are fearless. The fact is, your question is itself coming from fear. You're a deeply fearful individual. Are you getting it? All that I'm trying to say is that you do not know what's inside. And thank me for saying that in the most elaborate, rather convoluted manner. 2-3 hour sessions are really not needed. One sentence should suffice. But that's the quality of relationship between you and me. One statement that's so handy and so digestible. We would take it in, finish it off, co-opt it, and remain as we are. That same thing, that same little thing, that same obvious thing has to be said with 1,000 kinds of proofs, examples, anecdotes. Getting it? But beautifully enough, by seeing where the students' questions come from, we have perhaps inadvertently come to the very definition of the Sthitaprajna. The same definition that Arjuna is trying to avoid by asking irrelevant and superficial questions. Who is the Sthitaprajna? And that would now take us to what Sri Krishna has to say in the next verse. Rest assured, Sri Krishna is not going to answer Arjuna's question. What does he say? He is someone who has cast off all desires, is contented in the self alone, by the self, such is the Sthitaprajna. Arjuna is asking for the outer traits, and Sri Krishna has taken him right within. Though still not exactly to the core. That will happen in the next verse. But still, he has been taken within. Who is he? Who has seen the futility of the way his ego works. The ego has nothing but desires. Where there is ego, there are bound to be desires. You cannot cast off desires without knowing how the inner thing operates. The operation of the inner thing itself is called desire. Desire is not just an attraction towards an object. Desire is the operation of the subject. Desire is not to be seen in terms of the object of desire. Object of desire is secondary, comes much later. Desire fundamentally is not something that comes from an object. Desire, we said, is the very operation of the subject, the ego. Desire is another name for ego, and ego is another name for ignorance. When you do not know what you want, and you also do not know how to live, how to relate, that's desire. There is a great difference between action, desirous action arising from ignorance, and solid action arising from realization. When you are acting from ignorance, you have a target. When you are acting from realization, you may still have a target. But the difference is fundamental. Relating to the origin. So the difference is original. In ignorance, you desire so that your incompleteness can be addressed. In fulfillment, you have a target so that the fulfillment can be shared. And therefore, even though technically, even a fulfilled person can exhibit desires, can have targets, big targets, huge targets. Technically, that is possible. but still he is not said to have desires. Even if there is kamna there, that is taken as nishkamna. It's also a little bit of a matter of semantics. The desire of the fulfilled one cannot be referred to using the same word as the desire of the blind one, unfulfilled one. Hmm? So when Sri Krishna is talking of the casting of desires, he is talking of the blind one, the ignorant one, and the kind of desires that are there in ignorance. Those desires have been cast off. If you look at the context of the Bhagavad Gita itself, why can one not argue that Sri Krishna himself is desirous that Arjun fights and fights successfully? Does he not help Arjun in all ways possible? Not just by delivering knowledge, but also by suggesting strategies. In fact, he goes out of his way. He's supposed to be merely a charioteer, but he becomes a strategist. In fact, he takes over the situation at many places. Nobody knows what to do next. Sri Krishna says, do this, and I'm telling you to do this. Why can it not be argued that Sri Krishna himself has desires? And if you argue that, you're not entirely wrong. There is desire, but that desire is not coming from a point of personal dissatisfaction, discontentment. That desire is coming from a point of personal fulfillment and care for general good. Sri Krishna is personally not to get anything, whether this side or that side wins the war and gains the kingdom. He is a sovereign king in his own right, and his kingdom is far from the battlefield to the southwest. It's not for himself that he is running the chariot or providing the advice or wanting that Arjun should win. Why am I getting into this? Because the moment I read the verse and it said the Sthitaprajna is the one who has cast off his desires, I saw a certain gloom descending, especially on the faces of the young ones. Because youth is desire, no? All kinds of desire. You are young, and what is life for if not to consume and get this and that? Beautiful, colorful experiences of all kinds. And that's why wisdom appears so detestable, at least tasteless, cast off desires. I have a colorful thing planned for the night. What cast of desires? Let's all marinate in desire. The moment I say, Bhagavad Gita, cast of desires, oh, no, 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 no. The listening itself gets blocked. I'm not going to listen to it any further. It's not desire per se that is being condemned. It's ignorance that's the problem. If realization is the only solution, then it should be obvious that ignorance is the only problem. Desire is not the problem. Desire is not the problem. Relief? Happy? You can get up and dance a little, The gloom is lifted now. Yeah. Desire is not the problem. Fine. That's what Adhyatma is. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. Your nature is realization. The only, therefore, problem is when you are in ignorance. That's the only problem. Always remember this. Else you are endorsing or condemning just behaviors. Now, behaviors are neither a problem nor a solution. Behaviors are just behaviors. The only problem is always ignorance. If anything else suggests itself loudly as a problem, beware. It is probably masking the real problem. The real problem is always ignorance. And there is only one solution, which is knowing, realization, understanding. You can put it in several ways. Getting it? So desire is not a problem, which means desire arising from the right center will be a beautiful thing. You can have a colossal desire arising from the right center. And the bigger it is, the more it will bring goodness to everybody. No problem. Not only are you entitled to have desires, you are entitled to have mammoth desires, Himalayan desires. As they say, as high as the Himalayas and as deep as the Pacific. You can have those kinds of desires. The problem is not desire. The problem is the center that desire is coming from. Will you remember this? If you don't understand this, then you will start chasing desires with a stick. And become very desirous of at least the stick. Are you getting it? The biggest desire coming from right center is auspicious. And the smallest thing that you want from your pettiness, your ignorance, would cause trouble. Even the smallest thing that you want without knowing the want would cause trouble. We are not learning morality here, right? We are not here to train the mind to be desireless. All that is lok dharma. Most of you are young, full of energy. You must want. You must have goals. You must try, strive, exceed yourself, fail, get up and try again. You are not to behave like hermits. You have to fight. You have to play hard. And when you play, you do look at the scoreboard also. Look at the scoreboard as well. Yes. I'm leading, I'm trailing. I need to do something special. You must be full of desire. Bhagavad Gita is not about the renunciation of desire. Get rid of that notion. It is about the renunciation of ignorance. If Gyan is everything, why must I renounce anything except Agyan? Isn't that obvious? If Gyan is everything, why must I renounce anything except? So don't renounce anything. The world is your playground. Nothing is forbidden. In the heydays of existentialism, there used to be graffiti on the walls of Paris. Forbidding is forbidden. Now, that was not necessarily spiritual, but that was good. Nothing is forbidden except forbidding. Nothing is forbidden. Only ignorance is forbidden. Blindness is forbidden. Are you getting it? This is not a moral sermon. You don't have to look good. Arjuna is asking questions about looking good. How much of your behavior do you think comes from the concern to look good? Please assess yourself honestly. I want to look good. Good to others. Would you be wearing the same hair were it not for the urge to look good? And you might not even know the answer. So stay with yourself. Ask yourself, if there were no one to show these hair to, would I still keep these hair exactly as they are? Arjun's concern is looking good. How does he sit? How does he walk? And if in a moment of impossible carelessness, impossible because he is Krishna, but if in that moment of carelessness, Krishna actually does spill the beans and say, the Sthitaprajna, he walks in this kind of a gentle manner, his gait is composed and steady, and such things. Arjun would immediately lap that up so that he could copy. It becomes so easy, Look good, look wise, look pious, look holy, look pure. This is not about looking good, doing that. Don't care how you look. Unless your great desire demands that you look good in the pursuit of that desire. Otherwise, there is no need to look good. I remain shabby all the time. But before I get in, 2 or 3 of them hold me and make me comb my hair. I don't resist, though I can throw them away, but fine. I feel like. Don't you hear grunts sometimes from behind that door? That's me. Because they are trying to do indecent things to me. Roll up your sleeves, get a better shirt. Here is some moisturizer, here is the comb. No, sir, you can't walk in with boxer shorts. Why can't I? But then I concede for the greater good. Just, a little favor to the universe. Getting it? So even looking good is not forbidden. Though it's not about looking, nothing is forbidden. Only if in the pursuit of my enlightened purpose, I need to look good, I'll look good. Fine. If that's the price it takes, I'll pay. But that's not for myself. It's not that I want to extract something from you, admiration, applause. Therefore, I have to look in a particular way. One of the scariest things about going to these TV studios, you call that dressing up? I call that manhandling. This big a tray that one carries, full of all kinds of powders and lotions and chemicals and everything. And he won't allow you to step into the studio before everything has been. Fine, I'll tolerate it. Are you getting it? Please see the difference, if you can, between that and getting all made up for a wedding. You see the difference? Though the cosmetics might be just the same. The processes too might just be the same. Nothing is forbidden. For the right purpose, everything is okay. The world, we said, is your playground and your battleground and your cremation ground, the only ground. Are you getting it? Now you see why it becomes very difficult getting close to the teacher. Because the teacher too, in his desire to help you, necessarily maintains a certain made up face. Because making it up too is not prohibited. Nothing is prohibited. If you won't maintain that face or facade, you would run away. But as you start coming closer, you start seeing other faces of the teacher, faces that are less made up, less attractive to look at from the usual eye, more naked faces. And then, if you are not ready enough, you will wince, be shocked, and run away in fright. Pakhandi. Yes, often there is that thing, and believe me, every teacher worth the name in history has had to put up a made up face for your sake, not his own sake. He has had to narrate you stories because you cannot stand the truth. But then, as you start, I said, coming closer in the intimate inner circle, then the truth without the envelope can be exposed only to those who are ready, only to those who are prepared. Are you getting it? If there is nearness to the teacher, without readiness on part of the discipline, of the disciple, then the teacher is lost on the disciple forever. And that happens. You allow an undeserving person to have access to the teacher, and that undeserving person will lose the teacher forever. And the blame would be actually on the teacher. It should be. For having allowed a raw person to gain nearness to himself. You are not yet ready. And you saw too much, you heard too much, you came too close. You are not yet ready for this kind of intimacy. And the result is that now the teacher has become useless. You know what readiness means? Readiness means the ability to see beyond the obvious, beyond the behavior, beyond the outer. If you're not yet ready, all you will see in the teacher is the outer, the behavior. You will look at the teacher just as you look at yourself, using the same parameters, the same metrics. And your metrics are all very, very conditioned against the truth. And with these conditioned metrics, when you look at the teacher, you will never find the teacher sufficient or good or worthy or honorable. And then the teacher is lost on you. If you don't find the teacher having merit, there is no way you are going to benefit from the teacher. It becomes important then the teacher also maintains a certain distance for your own sake. And if needed, the teacher must also wear makeup. Because you are not yet ready to look at the real face. This is something that I learned over the years, the decades. As I look at myself, it's been a journey in the reverse gear. Probably the ultimate thing was something so beautiful, so appealing, so captivating, that I fell for it very early. I can't remember the year, the date, the occasion. It has been continuously present. I cannot put my finger on a place or a date or an event. That's something that I rather easily moved to and let myself be taken by it. You could call it the Paramarth. That came first to me. But I wasn't experienced enough in the world because I was not that interested in the world, frankly. So I didn't know the ways of people. So slowly, as I moved into social and public life, over the years, I learned Vyavahar. I'm still learning that. I can't claim to be well versed in that. Paramarth came first and then came Vyavahar. Probably next, I'm going to venture into. I just had very little idea or experience of how people behave and how resistant people can be towards the real thing. I just didn't know how to wear makeup. I didn't realize the importance. I come from a tech background. I understand technology to some extent. Those videos, the utterly shabby things that you see, right from 2011 till 2021, they were not necessary. The shabbiness could have been avoided had I wanted to. It just didn't occur to me that I have to make up the videos, that there must be the right kind of light and the right kind of color correction, and the shirt must match the background and whatnot. Just as I had fallen very, very easily for the truth, I thought anybody who hears what I'm saying would fall for the truth. Why would they need ostentation and decoration and all kinds of inducements? Because I didn't need them. Many of the books that I read were legacy books. Moth-eaten, crumbling pages. Have you seen those books with brown yellow pages? And covers peeling off? It didn't matter to me. That's where I came from. So I thought, that's how the world too is. And I didn't have sufficient experience of the world. I have been shy and guilty of not being social enough, not being outgoing enough. I thought just as the bare truth has been sufficient for me, the bare truth would be sufficient even for everybody. And in that kind of delusion, I continued for a decade. Probably I'm still continuing. And so I would reveal myself just too easily. In fact, I would never conceal myself. You ask me any kind of question, the answer would always come from Paramarth. I didn't bother to check whether that fellow is ready in any way. I gave them so much that it became useless for them. So much and so early. Most of the people who have been with me, let me confess, have gained nothing. And I think I'm guilty of not seeing how people cling to their limitations, how people have very little love for the truth. And how people have to be not just induced, seduced, even for a holy purpose. If you tell the bare thing to them, it is unpalatable, undigestible, unacceptable. Are you getting it? You don't have to be a perfectionist. You don't need to have models in mind. You don't need to behave according to set patterns of even wisdom. You don't need to behave by absolute standards. You can have absolute standards in the dimension of the absolute. But if you're choosing to be in this world and interact with the people of this world, then you need to have relative standards. And that is all right. That doesn't make you a lesser Atmagyani. Are you getting it? It's allowed. It's all right. The only thing that is not all right is ignorance. Everything is all right. Sometimes even withholding the truth might be the way to bring someone gradually closer to the truth. In your mad missionary zeal, in your uncaring love, if you expose the absolute truth and the naked facts too early, chances are that the student, the person in front of you, will not be able to take it. Hmm? The fast track is only for those who have great love. For others, there can be other methods. Hmm? And adopting those other methods is, come on, all right. The only thing that is not all right is ignorance. Never entertain such questions or pricks or barbs from your own so-called conscience or from those around you. You know you are a spiritual person and still you are indulging in such behavior. Is this what the Gita teaches you? Never entertain such things. The Gita allows everything except, that should be your answer. Yes, the Gita allows everything except ignorance. Is this what your Acharya has taught you? Yes. Yes. Dang it. Hmm? It's a it's a beautiful instruction. And look at the holy contradiction. Sri Krishna, in his desire to elevate Arjun, is telling Arjun to get rid of desires. Sri Krishna, in his desire to elevate Arjun, is telling Arjun to get rid of desires. The purest desire that Arjun will have will be a problem. Are you getting it? And even a questionable looking desire that Krishna has will be holy. It's not about purity or the lack of it. It's about the point the desire is coming from. If desire is coming from understanding, go with it. Put everything into it. Chase it. Like a dying one chases life. Satisfied in the self alone, by the self. It's a beautiful turn of phrase. So poetic. Once we went to the hills and we did this one. And I asked everyone to write this down. It's poeticity. Beautiful. Atmanyeva Atmana. In the self, by the self, satisfied. Tushta. Atmanyeva Atmana Tushta. There is nothing out there that can give me a central kind of pleasure. Nahin. I'm not looking at the world with hungry eyes. It's no more the place to beg. It's now the place to play. Does that mean I'm going away from the world? Who goes away from a playground? Do you? In fact, those who take the world as a place to beg, they are the ones who wish that they go away. Because who wants to remain at a begging ground forever? So they wish for death secretly. Come on, this life must come to an end. This is curious because we often think spirituality is about quitting the world. No. Who wants to quit a playground? Would you want to quit a playground? No. But you would certainly want to quit your torture ground. So the common man, he wants to run away. Don't you want to run away? What do you call your weekend adventures? Getaways. We want to run away. The spiritual man doesn't want to run away. He's playing. He's all right. You see the reversal. We feel the sansari, the worldly man belongs here. And the spiritual man is a forsaker, a renouncer. The reality is just the opposite. The worldly man never belongs because he understands nothing. He is just sleepwalking. He doesn't understand what he is doing, why he is doing, where he is going, why is nothing. The spiritual one really belongs. I have not come from anywhere. I am not going away anywhere. I am here. I am this place. Positive, affirmative, life friendly. That's what spirituality is. Not life averse. Not about giving up or quitting. It's about wanting. But wanting rightly, yes. Just download the Acharya Prashant app. And there you go to the community section. And you have live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes. I'm seeing lives change in thousands, if not millions, every day in front of my own eyes. We are doing it. Right. We have actually done it.
Join the community of more than 2 lakh participants on the Acharya Prashant app. Your first month is completely free. You'll get full access to Gita Mission. On the app, you will get regular live sessions, daily exclusive conversations with Acharya Prashant, access to the vibrant Gita community, wisdom exams, curated news, audiobooks, quotes, and much more. Search Acharya Prashant on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download now.